I found out my family had erased me the same way strangers learn gossip, through a photo I was never meant to see. There they were, smiling beneath the string lights, hands raised in a perfect toast. And there, right where I should have been standing, was nothing. Just a gap. A blank space where someone had carefully cropped me out, like I'd never existed at all. It wasn't sudden. The silence had been building for years, growing like frost between us. Every unanswered call, every avoided glance, every polite maybe next time, until one day. I wasn't invited anymore, not to birthdays, not to holidays, not even to the family I was born into. I used to think patience could fix anything if you just waited long enough. I don't believe that anymore. So when the invitation finally came, unsigned, unaddressed, more obligation than welcome, I didn't hesitate. I folded it once, set it beside my keys, and whispered to myself, "This time, they'll see me." They just don't know how different that's going to look. The screen on my desk lit up just as the sun began to rise over D.C. I wasn't looking for anything, just another scroll through noise. But the photo found me anyway. A vineyard, sunlight caught in champagne flutes, my parents' faces split into practiced smiles, and right between them, where I used to stand, was air. They hadn't just moved on. They'd edited me out 6 years earlier. I'd walked away from everything after Afghanistan. They said I made the wrong call, that I cost lives. The investigation ended, the verdict stuck, and the world needed someone to blame. So I packed what was left of myself and disappeared into a government cubicle where no one saluted and no one stared. It was easier to fade than to fight. Now here it was again, my family smiling for the world while pretending I didn't exist. My father had reposted the photo with a caption about honor and legacy. The same man who once told me, "A Bennett never hides from consequence." 3 days later, an envelope landed on my desk, thick, cream-colored, addressed not to me, but to the Bennett family. Inside, a single card, a date, a location, and a line at the bottom, formal attire, preferably beige or gray. I almost tossed it. Then my phone vibrated. A secure alert blinked across the screen, a voice from a life I'd buried. "The wedding venue is on our watch list. Don't ask why. Just be there." I stared at the uniform folded in my closet, untouched for years. My hands didn't tremble when I reached for it. Some silences don't end. They have to be broken. The road back to Montana felt endless, an old scar reopening with every mile. Wind pushed across the plains, cold enough to sting through the glass. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly as I'd left it. Porch lights still flickering, paint still chipped. But the warmth that once lived there had long been emptied out. My mother opened the door. Elaine Bennett, small and careful, like someone who'd spent a lifetime avoiding sudden movements. She studied me for a heartbeat before whispering that I looked better than she expected. My father didn't bother standing. He just lowered his newspaper long enough to say he was surprised I had the nerve to come back. I didn't answer. We'd both already said too much. Years ago. Dinner was silent, the kind that chews through you more than the food. Marissa barely looked up from her phone. Every gesture rehearsed, polite, mechanical. When I asked if she was ready for the wedding, she smiled without showing teeth. "Everything's taken care of," she said. "He's handling it." Then she excused herself before I could ask who he was. Later that night, as I slipped on my coat to leave, my mother appeared in the hallway holding a small silver box, the kind you'd expect to hold jewelry. But when I opened it, there was only a folded note inside. 3 lines. "Someone is watching Marissa. Don't let history repeat." I looked up, but she was already turning away, her face pale under the kitchen light. She said quietly that some things couldn't be spoken in that house. I wanted to ask what she meant by history, but I already knew. It was the same word people had whispered 6 years ago, the one that had buried my name. When I drove off, the house lights were still glowing behind me, steady as ever, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside that place had already shifted, like a storm gathering under the floorboards. The next morning, I sat in a corner booth of a cafe in Helena, laptop open, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. I typed the name of the wedding venue into a classified search portal. Harbor Light Estate, Maine. Within seconds, the results made my stomach tighten. The estate was one of 3 flagged sites under defense investigation, suspected for covert data transmissions to foreign channels. I sent the coordinates to Elias. His reply came fast. Confirmed. We traced a Crown Meridian satellite relay near that estate. Someone's using civilian events as cover for data transfers. Crown Meridian. The name alone was enough to freeze my blood. They were the same contractors who had worked on AresNet, the military AI project I once led before it all went up in smoke. The project had been shut down, declared a failure, and I had been the failure they pinned it on. I pulled the wedding invitation from my bag, reading it again. Down in the corner, so small it could have been missed, italic letters shimmered faintly, supported by Crown Meridian. I called Elias. My voice barely rose above a whisper. Why her? Why my sister? He paused before answering. Not her. You. They want to make sure you never clear your name. And if they bury this data, they bury you for good. I ended the call, sat there for a long time. The wind outside dragged through the trees, rattling the cafe windows. I caught my reflection in the glass, harder now, older, stripped of whatever softness used to live in my eyes. That was the moment I stopped wondering if I should go to the wedding. It wasn't an invitation anymore. It was a summons to the last battlefield I had left. The Maine sky was a dull blur of mist when I reached Harbor Light Estate. Through the fog, the gilded sign read the Bennett Caldwell Wedding, and beneath it, in smaller print, sponsored by Crown Meridian, a company name I thought I'd buried with my past, now engraved under my family's celebration. I slipped into the crowd in a gray dress, the color of someone trying not to exist. The woman at the check-in table asked for my name without looking up. When I told her, her hands froze above the tablet. She tried again, and then offered a tight, rehearsed smile. My name wasn't there. She led me to the overflow seating by the service door, far from the cameras, close enough to hear the hum of the generators. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased deliberately. From my corner, I watched the chandeliers shimmer, the laughter echo, the illusion of happiness looping endlessly. Near the back, 2 men in dark suits hovered over the soundboard, badges glinting with the logo I dreaded. Crown Meridian. I lifted my phone, pretending to take a picture. Through the zoom, I caught one of them inserting a silver USB. A line appeared on the mixer screen. AresNet audio channel connected. They were transmitting data, not music. I rose to move closer, but my mother blocked my path. Her eyes were a warning wrapped in fear. She whispered for me not to ruin this. I asked whether she wanted truth more than peace. She turned away. That was her answer, and our family's curse. I left her there and climbed the stairs to the bridal suite. The scent of lavender hit before I even knocked. Marissa stood before the mirror, veil catching the light. She saw me and stiffened, the warmth gone in an instant. I pointed at the silver necklace around her neck. The pendant gleamed with a faint, steady pulse. My watch caught the signal. Mil Sig 4531, AresNet. My chest tightened. That was my code. Who gave it to you? I asked quietly. Matt. He said it tracks my heartbeat. Tracks more than that. I thought, Crown Meridian had hidden their transmitter on the bride herself. You're sending live data to a stolen defense network. I told her. She laughed, brittle, shaking her head. Then anger replaced confusion. Stop this! Nova! Not today. This isn't about you. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't take off the necklace. I didn't argue. Some truths only surface through consequence. When I stepped out into the hall, my phone buzzed. A message from Elias. They're not transferring data. They're rewriting it. The file is yours. I stopped breathing. They weren't just stealing information. They were erasing the last proof that I'd ever been innocent. I clutched the silver box in my coat pocket, its edges cutting into my hand. If I didn't act now, They'd finish what they started 6 years ago. And this time, no one would even remember my name. The wind off the Maine coast was sharp enough to taste, thick with salt and lavender drifting from the garden. From somewhere beyond the terrace came the delicate pull of violins. Slow, graceful, rehearsed. To anyone else, it sounded like a love song. To me, it was a countdown. I typed quickly on my watch. They're transmitting through the necklace. Can you block it remotely? Elias's reply came seconds later. Too risky. You'll have to cut the source. Stay near the control hub. I'll signal when it begins. I didn't bother to answer. I just looked toward the ballroom, toward the place where my past and my ruin had decided to waltz together again. Inside, I stopped cold. General Robert Kell was there, smiling, toasting, shaking my father's hand as if they were old comrades, the same man who'd once called me an unfortunate casualty of command. It's an honor to meet the man who raised such dedicated daughters, he said. You know our family's proud of its service history, my father replied. I stood a few feet away, invisible but burning. Kell glanced over, recognition flickering just long enough to sting. Major Bennett. Or should I say Ms. Bennett now? Just Nova. The civilian version suits the occasion. Each word sliced clean and deliberate. He walked away, leaving behind laughter that didn't sound like laughter at all. I moved to my seat in the back, where they'd meant for me to vanish. The perfect vantage point. My watch pulsed with a faint vibration. Transfer in 10 minutes, Elias warned. Marissa stood beneath the arch, glowing in her white dress. Guests whispered about her beauty. None of them saw the invisible network flickering to life around her. The orchestra swelled, and my father stepped to the microphone. His voice carried through the hall. Today, the Bennett family proves that honor, loyalty, and legacy never fade. I smiled without meaning to. Honor fades fast when it's built on silence. The lights flickered once. Behind the stage, the cameras began syncing, the signal blooming into the Crown Meridian relay. The transfer had started. I reached into my bag, fingers brushing the silver box. Under the glow of chandeliers, the words inside it gleamed faintly. Don't let history repeat, I whispered, not this time. When the MC asked everyone to turn toward the big screen for the family video, my watch buzzed again. This is it. Act now. I rose, but my mother's hand caught my wrist. Her voice trembled. Not today. Nova, please. Do you know what they're doing? I know, but no one here wants the truth. Her fear was real, but I'd lived with fear long enough to recognize its other name, complicity. You don't have to listen. I said, you just have to see. I pulled free, stepping into the aisle as the room dimmed. Every pair of eyes turned toward the screen. The MC's voice rose above the soft hum of conversation. Before we continue, we'd like to honor our veterans. If any guests have served this country, please stand to be recognized. Chairs scraped, polite applause. Kell rose first, smiling to the cameras, and then Elias stood, adjusted his tie, faced me. His voice cut through the hall, steady, unmistakable. Major General Nova Bennett, ma'am. The sound cracked open the room. Applause died mid-air. Glass shattered somewhere. Every face turned toward me, the woman they'd chosen not to see. I stood. The spotlight caught me full on. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The screen flickered. The wedding montage vanished, replaced by a desert, the mission that had ended everything. My voice came first. Civilians confirmed, hold fire, repeat, hold fire. Then Kell's voice. Let her take the blame. She's replaceable. The crowd gasped. My mother sobbed. My father's face went gray. Kell lunged for the mic, shouting that it was fake. I stepped forward. No, General, this is what you buried. I'm the one you called replaceable. The ballroom doors opened. 2 federal agents entered, badges raised. Robert Kell. You are under federal investigation for falsifying defense intelligence. Marissa unclasped her necklace. The light inside it blinked once, then died. On the screen behind her, new words appeared. AriesNet, data integrity restored. Kel turned as they cuffed him. His voice was hoarse. You were always a wild card. Nova. I met his gaze. No, sir. I was the truth you couldn't control. Silence settled over the hall. Clean, sharp, and absolute. For the first time in 6 years, the truth didn't need to be spoken. It was standing right there, and it finally had a face. The gold glow of the wedding dimmed into something sterile and cold. The screen's white light spilled over every face, turning the ballroom into a silent courtroom. Footage flickered, sand, smoke, chaos. My voice cut through the static, civilian presence confirmed. Hold fire. Then came his, sharp, certain, let her take the blame. She's replaceable. Robert Kell, the man who once said war needed scapegoats. Now he couldn't look up. My father sat rigid, gripping the chair so tightly his knuckles whitened. My mother trembled behind her hand. Marissa, my sister, the bride, unclasped her necklace, eyes wide, tears spilling. I didn't know. Nova. He said that too, I whispered. Matt lunged for the console. Elias had already locked it. 2 federal agents appeared, cuffs glinting under the light. Kel met my gaze. Justice isn't clean. Nova, it's mud. At least I'm not standing on someone else's, I said. When they led him out, the doors opened to the sea wind. Salt cut through the perfume and lies. I turned to Marissa. You don't need to apologize. Just remember, honor lives in what you do when no one believes you. She cried. The room stayed still. And I stood. Steady. In silver light. News of the arrest broke before dawn. Headlines spread faster than I could drive away. General Robert Kell arrested for falsifying defense data. Former officer Nova Bennett officially reinstated. I didn't bother reading the rest. After the chaos of the night, I drove through the dark plains of Montana with nothing but the hum of the highway and the echo of my own thoughts. The world felt weightless, emptied out, like the silence that follows a storm. When I walked into the house the next morning, the air was filled with the smell of coffee and toasted bread. My mother stood at the counter, pouring cream into 2 mugs. My father sat at the table, newspaper folded, butter knife in hand. Marissa was there too, hair unbrushed, sweater hanging loose, her eyes rimmed in sleepless red. No one spoke. My mother set a cup in front of me, her hand trembling slightly. We chose to protect the name, not the blood, she said softly. For the first time in years, I met her eyes and didn't see distance, just recognition. My father folded the newspaper and sighed. I don't know what you went through, but last night, I saw who you are, and I've never been prouder. Marissa slid my old chair closer to the table. Saved your seat, she murmured. I sat. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting the room in gold. The coffee was warm, familiar, quiet. No apologies, no speeches, just the peace that comes when truth finally stops needing words. On the table, the silver box lay open, light catching its edges. I folded the note inside, "Don't let history repeat," and tucked it into my pocket. For the first time in 6 years, the past no longer followed me. It simply stayed where it belonged, behind me, silent, and at rest. A month later, I was back in Washington, D.C. The Defense Department looked exactly as it always had. Gray walls, sharp edges, a building that had never learned softness. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the halls, steady and cold. On the internal board outside my office, a single line of text glowed in black and white. Major General Nova Bennett reinstated. Clearance level restored. I stared at it for a long time before switching off the screen. I didn't need my name in bold to believe it anymore. The truth had already done its work. From the drawer, I took out my grandmother's old ceramic mug, chipped along one edge, and poured hot water over a scoop of coffee. The steam rose slow and familiar, the scent grounding me the way nothing else could. It smelled like Montana mornings. Quiet, honest, unpretentious. The phone rang. My mother's voice came through, soft and careful. "Thanksgiving's coming. Will you come home this year?" I smiled faintly. eyes following the swirl of yellow leaves outside the window. No invitation needed. Mom! Silence. Then a quiet sob on the other end. I let it hang there, gentle, unspoken, enough. Outside, the city kept moving, cars flashing by, strangers crossing streets without ever knowing that somewhere above them sat a woman who had once been erased from her own life, finally breathing without fear of being forgotten. I took a sip of coffee, the warmth spreading through me like forgiveness. Justice doesn't roar, I murmured. It hums quietly, like morning coffee on a cold day. Sunlight cut across my desk, striking the silver insignia lying there, worn, scarred, but still bright. I closed the last file, set my pen down, and felt the stillness settle. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't the ghost in the photograph. I was the one writing the story now. And this time, no one could edit me out.